Well, hello there, and welcome to the Spring Acrylic Portrait Painting Challenge Masterclass, lesson number 2, sketching your portrait with accuracy. Sketching your portrait with accuracy. This is probably one of the most important lessons of the whole class series that I'm doing here, because a sketch is really the foundation of your portrait. We don't want to do a portrait without an accurate sketch, and that's what I want to teach you here today. Now, I'm excited that you're taking the challenge here with me and several other artists. At this stage here, you would have already gotten your grid done, you would have gotten your canvas prepared for the sketch, and I'm excited to teach you here in this next lesson. But I would encourage you, if you haven't already, take the Portrait Painting Challenge. It is completely free. You can take the lessons at your own pace, and when you sign up, I will get everything to you that you need to do this portrait successfully with us. So go to realisticacrylic.com/spring-acrylic-portrait-painting-challenge. And when you sign up, I'll send you the welcome kit, and that includes the reference photo with the grid and without the grid. It also includes the palette layout guide, the supplies list, everything you need from canvases to paint brushes, the correct paints, all the supplies you'll need to paint with us. And you'll also get the masterclass schedule so that you know when each new lesson is coming out. I'll email you the lessons as soon as they come out, so you'll never be in the dark. You'll know exactly what we're doing, and you'll kind of have a game plan going forward. This is fantastic to be able to paint this portrait with you. Last year when I did the challenge, like I said, over 700 artists took it, and they painted a portrait they were proud of. Many people painted a portrait for their very first time. Some people had some painting experience, but you know, they did the class with us and they actually improved as well. So whatever your level, whether you're beginner, intermediate, or advanced, you're going to get something out of this class. I'm going to teach you how to paint a portrait in a little bit of a different way than you're used to. Instead of putting all the colors up opaquely, we're going to do everything more like a Polaroid photograph. So you're going to be building in your colors very lightly using the classical acrylic glazing technique. And with that, then you're going to be able to create a luminosity, a richness, and a depth, much like the old masters did centuries ago. I want to teach you how to do that. So before I go any further here with this class, let me start off by asking a word of blessing upon you and also the class as I teach it. So Father, I do ask a blessing on this class. And Lord, you know that apart from you I can do nothing. With you I can do all things. So Lord, I do pray that you would guide me as I sketch here today. Help me to capture an accurate likeness of this girl that we're painting. Help me to teach the students how to do that. And Lord, I pray that you would bless each and every one of them, Lord. So many people, and you know all of their individual stories, and you know exactly their goals in portrait painting, why they want to learn how to do this. And I pray, Lord, that you would help each and every one of them. Help them to get an accurate sketch so they can make a portrait that they're proud of. I pray that some of them would be able to go into commissioned portraiture, others would be able to paint portraits of their family members. And Father, I pray you provide for them everything they need, supplies, materials, creativity, and good health and strength to paint. So Lord, I ask this blessing upon this class. I commit it to you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so let's dive in here. What you want to do here is gather up your supplies and materials. You would have sketched out your grid using a gray colored pencil. All right, and I taught you how to do that in the previous lessons. If you haven't watched those previous lessons, the preparatory lesson and lesson number 1, go ahead and watch those now. You can sign up for the challenge. Everything will be sent to you, and you will have that all within one page that you can download and access those lessons individually. But go ahead and gather up your materials. You're going to want to use a dark colored pencil. In this case, I'm going to use dark brown. You could also use some other colors like sepia, burnt ochre, but dark brown is going to be a little better. You're going to be able to see it better. It's going to end up looking almost grayish or black here, but it does have just a slight brownish tint, and I think that'll work well for her skin tones. So that's what I would recommend. You can either use a sepia tone or a dark brown. So I have the canvas gridded off with 2-inch squares. So we would have 10 squares wide, or I'm sorry, 8 squares wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 10 squares high, 10 squares vertically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you'll just want to double check. It's always a good idea. Make sure that your reference photo has the same amount of grid squares as what's on your canvas. And you'd be surprised. I've had students, and I've actually had it happen to myself when I first started teaching people how to grid, that I didn't have the same amount of squares, and the portrait just did not look right. So make sure that you count the same amount of squares on your reference photo. Now, if you need 1-inch squares on your grid, you just want a little more help, because the grids are just basically, I hate to use this metaphor, but like training wheels in a way. They're kind of a halfway point between tracing with a projector and doing freehand sketching. But if you need a little more guidance, and there's no shame in that, if you need a little more guidance, a little more help to get a more accurate likeness, you can do a 1-inch grid. And I actually have some 1-inch reference photos that you can use, both an 8-inch version and a 4x5 inch. So an 8x10 and a 4x5. You'll find those in the welcome kit when you sign up for the challenge. But just to let you know, you can use a 1-inch grid if need be. I'm going to teach using the 2-inch grid, but you're more than welcome to use a 1-inch grid if you'd like. Okay, let's dive in. So the first thing we want to do is just kind of block out the main proportions. We want to block out the main proportions here on our sketch. So we're going to start at the lower left corner, and just want to basically start getting in the lines. You also want to have an eraser on hand. I forgot that. Yeah, an eraser is super important. I have a large white eraser. I also have a mechanical eraser, a powered eraser, and that works really well too. But this will work fine as well. You can just use one of these. So what we want to do is just get the correct angle. This comes up about halfway. We're showing her arm here. And then we want to block in just roughly where her arm might reside. And I like to start my sketches usually on the left-hand side. Sometimes I might start from the top, but in this case I just feel like I'd like to start here at the shoulder and work my way up. So that might change depending on the portrait, but this is the way I'd like to work this one. Just want to quickly block in the forms here for the shoulder. And you want to pay attention to where these lines fall on the grid. So we're just basically getting some fractions here and seeing where everything resides. I'm sketching very light at first. I will go in with some darker lines later. Your grid should be muted out. With the previous lesson I showed you how to do that. I made the grid a little bit darker here just so you could see it, but your grid should be very, very faint, and that'll make it easier to cover up later. All right, we're just going to block in some angles here for her head. Again, I just want to pay attention to the proportions. It's really good to see the negative spaces. You want to see these negative spaces like right in here where you have the spaces left between the grid lines and whatever you're sketching. So it would be like this little shape right here, this sliver. That is very, very important. Let me zoom in and show you more. What I'm talking about is this shape right here. So if you can really pay attention to these shapes, how far, for example, is this cheek line from this intersection of grids, okay? And you really look at this shape here, left by the edge of her, this would be by her eye and her temple area, her cheek. Look at this shape, study that on your reference photo, and replicate what you see. Ideally, you want to be looking at your reference photo 50% of the time. So always be scanning back and forth between your reference photo. I have my reference photo right over here on my Kindle. You want to make sure you have that reference photo really close to your canvas, whether it's printed out or you have a tablet. And by the way, if you need a way to hold your tablet next to your easel, next to your canvas, be sure to check out my free course, Make a Reference Photo Holder, and that's at realisticacrylic.com in the courses section. I will try to put up a link for that in the video as well, but check out that free course, How to Make a Reference Photo Holder, and you'll be able to then set up your tablet next to your canvas. The closer it is, the better. Okay, so again, we want to see these shapes, just basically blocking out to the edge. I got her forehead now, her hairline becomes the dominant shape. So again, I want to study that angle, ask myself, how far along does this line intersect? Does it intersect 1/3 of the way between these two vertical hash marks? Does it intersect in the halfway point, 1/3, 1/4? Where does it intersect? And I would say it's just a little bit less than a half, maybe 2/5 of the way over. And I ask myself the same thing for these lines running across horizontally. How far vertically does this line ascend for the top of her head? And I would say it goes to maybe about a 1/4 of the way up. And just asking yourself these questions as you sketch will really help you to get some accurate proportions. Keep everything pretty simple at this point. Now she has a little poof of hair coming out, and then it flows out a little bit right here in the back. And then we're going to bring this down a little bit further. Now I'm just going to stop here to mention, if you were going to put up some 1-inch grid lines, prior to starting the sketch, these are 2-inch grids. You could just easily measure them off with a ruler just right in the middle, and you could get your grid lines right in the middle. In fact, you could even draw them just right in the face area if that's what you'd like to do. But anyway, let's continue here. So we're going to bring this line down. We got the poofiness of the hair in the back, and I need to bring this out further. Yeah, this needs to come out further. Let's erase this. No worries. Okay. We'll just bring this out a little bit further here. And this should come almost to the halfway point between these two vertical grid lines. Bring that hair down. That should be about the halfway point, a little bit past the halfway point. A lot of different strands, but I don't have to get every precise bit of it. Just enough. Now the back is a very dominant feature. I want to show the back and really kind of plot out where that goes. Where does that go? Maybe to about the halfway point right here. Bring that out just a bit further. And the beautiful thing with this system here, the way I showed you how to grid the canvas, it is just amazing how easily you can erase. With that matte medium being on the top, gesso and matte medium. In fact, your last layer to seal in the sketch should have more matte medium than gesso. And you'll find that this colored pencil just erases like a dream on this surface. I mean, graphite pencil tends to really get embedded in the surface texture of the canvas weave. But if you properly sanded and gessoed your canvas, you should find it very smooth. There'll be a little bit of texture, but it's going to be overall quite smooth and super, super easy to erase with a white eraser like this. So I love this system, something I stumbled on just a few years ago when I was trying to find different ways to put up a sketch. I was so frustrated with graphite, how it would smear and how it would be so difficult to erase. And I tried pastel pencil, and that erased super easily, but then it smeared really, really badly. But colored pencil, I don't know why I tried that, but I did one day, and I'm like, this is amazing. So definitely use colored pencil. You can use graphite if you want, but I really would encourage you to use colored pencil. Let's continue on. We're going to bring this sketch down here and getting this part of her back to the halfway point. Okay, it curves in just a little bit at the edge. You just want to double check yourself, make sure you're in the right place. You know, if you feel like you're lost, it's not a crime to count your grids and just double check. You know, 1, 2, 3. Where am I at? Oh yeah, there I'm at. Yeah, it looks like everything's on track here. That's good. Better to do that early on in the sketch rather than waiting until you have the sketch almost completed and then realize, you know, you've got the eye at the top of the head. Anyway, I want to show the outline of the edge of her dress, that opening for the neckline area, super important. That's a very dominant form here. And we're going to plot it out right about there. I can get the exact precise deviations in the fabric, the ups and downs, little curved areas later. I just want to get the overall sense of where it is. Okay, I'm going to just block in the back of her shoulder and the neck area right there. And it looks like her neck, I need to bring that in a bit further. That's actually at the halfway point, pretty close to that. Let's see, we're going to block in this part. I need to sharpen the pencil here. Made a little insulated box here just to muffle the sounds of that colored pencil being sharpened, because a lot of students in the past portrait painting challenge said, hey, this sharpener noise is just so jolting, you know, it's so loud, it kind of startles me when I listen to your video. It's kind of grating to the ears. So I made that insulated box with styrofoam and fiberglass insulation, and I think that kind of cuts down the noise a little bit. If you like that, let me know in the video comments below. Okay, and then back to the drawing here. So I want to bring this area up, this jawline. Now let's block in this dominant form of her hairline. Okay, we're going to, let's see, start. Yeah, we can start here. Let's finish off this form of her neck. Just kind of plot out where that is, about 1/3 of the way over, something like that. I can always refine it later. I just want to get it in the ballpark. The ear, bottom of the earlobe is about halfway between these two lines here. We're going to get the form of the hair in. And then we want to get kind of the outside edge of her hair going into the forehead line. That's going to be something like that. Let's just block it in pretty simply here. Well, I just looked at my sketch and I realized I made a mistake. Hey, is it okay to make mistakes? Yes, it's okay to make mistakes. I thought, should I just start this whole sketch over and make it look like it never happened? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you that it is possible to make a mistake. Yep, even as your portrait painting instructor, I made a mistake. That's all right. Because in the sketching stage, when you start very early on and you notice you made a mistake, no big deal. We'll just erase it and we're fine. So I just realized that I made her forehead and the top of her hair way too short. This line actually should be toward the top. I started working with the ear and I realized, okay, something is not quite right. When I was trying to get the hair to meet up here, I didn't have enough room to get the angles I wanted. So I'm going to take my eraser and just erase the top. I'll show you how easy it is to erase with this setup. Look at this. Look how easy that is to erase. Just like it was never there. Okay, so let's bring this angle up a little bit. So actually what needs to happen is I need to have this part of the forehead going up there. Yeah, let's just adjust this here. Still really easy to erase. And we have a couple divots. We have this one divot here going toward her eye. Then we have another divot for her forehead. That's not nearly as much. We have the edge of her hair right there. And now her hair should go up all the way to the top. There we go. That's a lot better. So we'll just pay attention to these angles again. Redo them. Yeah, you know, when you make a mistake, it's good to have an eraser. I was just thinking about that as I was sketching here. It's just like how Jesus Christ forgives us of all of our sins. You know, you can make a lot of mistakes in your life, a lot of mistakes, and we all do. But the beautiful thing is, the blood of Jesus Christ is like this eraser. Cleans up those mistakes like they never happened. Isn't that a beautiful thing? It's just when I'm doing drawings and paintings, I'm just reminded of these metaphors of eternal things by the things we use every day. Okay, I'm going to be just bringing her hairline down on the edge here. And again, we want to, yeah, there we go, just bring this into the other part of her hair. That's better. Now, when I bring this hairline up toward her temple, everything should line up the way it ought to. There we go. That is one of the, maybe the drawbacks of the grid method, is that you can get so close to your work in doing certain areas that you forget to see the whole picture. But eventually, when you step back a little bit, you'll notice if you have something majorly off. And it's good to catch those mistakes early on. All right, so right here we have a straight angle. This goes down a little bit. We have the hairline going out. Everything down here seems to be lined up as it should. Now, just want to double check that her cheek isn't projecting out too much. There we go. This would come over just a bit more. And I'm going to put in one more line to delineate her clothing, and that should come over, let's see, 1, 2, 3 squares, and we'll have a line. This would be for her arm. There's a little fold right there, and it kind of makes a triangular shape. You can't see it, let me show you. Right down here, there's a little shape, 1, 2, 3 squares over, and then it's just a little bit past that intersection line. And we have a little triangular shape right there. We have another line right here, cuts across going upward. And there we go. Put in a couple more folds right here. And we got a fold right there. We want to capture that as well. All right, excellent. In the next step, I'm going to show you how to block in the facial features loosely. That'll be step number 2. And then step number 3, we're going to refine everything. So step number 2, we're going to block in the facial features loosely. and also start blocking in the features for the lace on her dress. And then step number 3, we're going to refine the sketch and bring it to completion. All right, I'll see you in that next step. All right, let's continue this next step here, and we're going to start working in the facial features. I'm going to begin in the upper left corner and just figure out where that eyebrow starts. That's the most important thing. And so it's going to be just at this little bump here on the side of her face by the temple. And we're going to bring that eyebrow down just a bit. Let it intersect at the midway point of this grid line running across. And let's block in her eye. Begin to get that form in there. Let's see, the line is maybe about a quarter away from the top. So just try to think of it as fractions, little less than a quarter of the way. And let's see, the tear duct is maybe a little past the halfway point, I would say at about a third of the way over from the right. And then I would say it goes down to not quite the halfway point, maybe 2/5 of the way down. So we just want to quickly block that in. And then let's go to this line representing the nose. And then let's go to the other eye and just block in that form. And we're going to say the bottom of the eyelid goes to maybe a little lower than the halfway point here on this grid line. So we just bring it down to about there. The corner is maybe, oh, I don't know, a quarter, no, a little less than a quarter of the way from the edge, about a quarter of the way. And then the top part of the lid is maybe about a third of the way from the top line here. So again, just seeing this fraction, thinking this is as thirds. This is the top part of the upper eyelid fold, about a third of the way down between this line here and this grid line there. So I'm just going to block in the shape of the iris quickly, get that upper eyelid in there kind of loose. I can refine it a little bit as need be, but for right now that's pretty good. So again, we want to look at the position, and it's important not to put that eye right in the center. You're gonna want to put it in the center. That's just your human tendency to order everything in your world, but make sure you don't put it right in the center. Really pay attention to where it resides in this box, in this grid. And we can see that it's up a little bit higher than center, and it's a little farther to the right than center, so it's a little right of center. And then this upper eyelid fold probably could stand to be just a bit higher as well, so I'll have to really double check the bottom edge there. But I'll come back in and refine this later. Let's get the eyebrow in. It starts just at the top of that grid line. It's almost resting like a shelf right on top of that grid line. But it does curve up a little bit higher. Yeah, it curves up just a bit higher, and then it comes down maybe about there. All right. And the eyebrow actually floats just a little bit past this vertical grid line. Now let's work on the nose. We're continue this line that we started. Where does the nose intersect on these vertical grid lines? That's important. And I would say it's at about the halfway point. Yeah, about the halfway point. So I can bring it out just a little bit farther to the right. I really want to pay attention to that shape. This shape right here that's created by the intersection of the grid lines and the nose. And we put in that nostril, just kind of block it in. We look at the bottom edge of the wing of the nose. Where does that go? And I would say almost a third of the way down. Almost a third of the way down. And then this edge of the nose just exceeds this intersection of the grid line. And we can just barely see that other edge of the nostril past the ball of the nose right there. Now let's block in her mouth quickly and get that in there. And we want to start with probably the most dominant shape. I'm going to start with the middle of her lips in this case. And just pay attention to where that resides. And I would say, oh, it's maybe almost a third of the way down, but it starts up at the corner that's a little bit below the halfway point, maybe 2/5 of the way down. And then the edge of the mouth from left to right, widthwise, goes almost to the middle of the grid. Possibly I need to bring out this fleshy part of her face a little bit more here to accommodate that. I'm just going to get the overall angle of the middle part of her lips where the top and bottom meet together. All right, and there's just a little bit of a divot there. There's a curve. We want to get that curve in there. Just a little bit of a curve right in here. We want to get that in, and then let's get in the bottom edge, just block it in loosely, and that should go not quite to the bottom of the intersection of these grid lines, but it does intersect a bit past the vertical, and it doesn't meet this horizontal grid. It's well above it. I would say less than a quarter of the way from the edge, the distance between these two grid lines. I would say maybe it's about 1/6 from the edge, something like that. Let's get that top part of the lip in. And that point should meet at about the halfway mark, above the halfway mark of the grid line. So something maybe about right here. And I can refine this as need be. I might look at it and say, you know what, the middle portion of her lips needs to come up a bit higher. That's okay. I can just adjust that if I need to. Okay, just adjust that. Really get this angle in here. Just show a little bit of a smile. Now we want to make sure that this mouth is going wide enough. It should line up with the eye, should line up with the tear duct. Okay, so we have the tear duct right here. We just kind of drop a straight line from that, and the edge of the mouth should line up pretty close to that tear duct. And it looks like we have it, so that's good. As long as I have my tear duct in the right place. There's this philtrum here, that little divot above the lip that comes down from the bottom of the nose. Let's put that in there. And the Cupid's bow, that's that curved part of the lip itself. Put that in. And there's a little divot below the lip that separates that fleshy area under the lip from the protruding part of the chin. And we'll put that in there as well. That's just below the intersection of that grid line. We can just add a little shading in there just to show that form. Alright, so we have the facial features blocked in pretty loosely. I'm just going to put in a little bit of detail for her ear canal. So this is what we have so far. We've got the sketch loosely blocked in, just have the outlines and a little bit of the facial features. So the next step is to work in some detail, work in some shading, work in some texture, refine some of the edges in the sketch that are off, get the detail in for the lace on the shirt. And we're going to do that in the next step. So I'll see you over there.